U.S. drone attacks claim more lives overseas. Two separate airstrikes have left over a dozen people dead. In Afghanistan and Yemen, a U.S. assassination drone has killed 6 people in Afghanistan's eastern province of Nangarhar. Local officials say the victims were Taliban militants, and in southern Yemen, another 7 lost their lives in Shabwa. Reports say those killed were all al-Qaeda militants. Washington claims that its drone attacks only target militants, but many civilians have been killed by the attacks in several Muslim countries over the past years. Ryan Dawson, human rights activist, joins us now from Nara, Japan. Sir, welcome to the program. Regardless of the fact that in many of these attacks, civilians are being killed, observers of the situation believe that the United States is serving as judge, jury, and executioner when it carries out these drone strikes. Do you see it in that light as well?
Well, yeah, it's both in Afghanistan and Yemen. I think drone strikes are acts of terrorism themselves, so I think it's hypocritical to say you're fighting terrorists by engaging in terrorism. They claim this time that they only hit al-Qaeda militants and the Taliban. I find that disingenuous considering the U.S. is financing al-Qaeda and used to finance the Taliban. They're currently aiding them in Syria right now simultaneously while they fight them in Yemen. And time after time, in the past, when they said they only killed militants, it turned out in the aftermath that they usually killed a lot of civilians. In fact, Yemen, their parliament last year in December banned the use of drones, and the U.S. is just ignoring their sovereignty, so they are acting as judge, jury, and executioners especially.
Speaking of the violation of sovereignty, when the United States carries out these airstrikes, these drone strikes rather, in Yemen and Somalia, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, it's not legal under the United Nations Charter. They're not getting any permission from the United Nations. And then there's also the fact that some people, some observers, many people from those countries especially believe that the governments of those countries are complacent, complicit, and sometimes in collusion with the United States in these drone attacks. What do you think?
In some cases they are. In Yemen they clearly were not, because the parliament voted to ban drones and the U.S. just ignored it. In Afghanistan they're doing this disgusting practice called double tapping, where they hit an area with drones and they circle back around when the medics come and they hit them again, clearly killing civilians. I'm not a big fan of going to the UN for permission with things, because the U.S. just uses the UN conveniently when the UN has a resolution that a country like, say, Iraq, breaking Resolution 1441, is doing, then they want to enforce the UN. But when it's going against American interests, then they want to ignore the UN. But I would say the sovereignty lies in the nation where the drone attacks are happening, and the U.S. clearly ignores them, except for in the cases where they have their puppet regimes in there, like Karzai.
Thank you very much, human rights activist Ryan Dawson, joining us here on Press TV's Top 5.